Hello, high school hockey fans. Welcome back to This Week in Wisconsin Prep Hockey. I'm Mike Hammond along with Bill Berg and Bill Berg Jr. Good evening to you guys. It's been a fun week of hockey, and we got a guest tonight. Junior, you want to talk about who we got for a guest?
Sure, we've got Wausau West head coach and president, I think, still of the Wisconsin Hockey Coaches Association, Brian Brandt. How are you doing tonight?
Doing great. Excited to be make my annual trek to the Zoom call here.
It is an annual trek. We're going to get started with something we've talked about several times this year. I don't know if it's something that you coaches in the WIA deal with, but it's in the news again after what happened to Adam Johnson over in England, and that's neck protection in hockey. It's recommended by USA Hockey, but as far as I know, it's not required by USA Hockey and it's not required by the NFHS. Is that something that the coaches and the WIA look at independently, or?
My guess is that's going to come down from the top. I think as coaches, we're going to handle it individually. There was a news story just done recently where one of my players was interviewed, Malik Andrews, and he's chosen to wear a neck guard. And I don't think like there's been really no thought about it. It's just some guys have suddenly have. I've seen them more in youth hockey than I ever have. Um, I think the incident over in England was just so catastrophic that it jolted everybody to think like, hey, we maybe need to relook at this. But from the coaches association, we've put nothing through our groups or haven't even really discussed it. WIA, I'm sure it's on their radar as something to recommend through the NFHS, just like USA Hockey's come down with.
I mean, because I know that ultimately it was the NFHS that made the rule changes for checking from behind, but the WIAA was at least part of the push on that.
Yeah, they were. I mean, I think at that time, Tom was on the NFHS rules committee or the head of the rules committee. So I think that had something to do with where that push came from. I don't know the structure of it right now to know that if LeVar is a part of that group or if maybe there's somebody who's been affected by this that is on the rules committee. That's a lot of times what can happen. That there's a personal story with some of this, and I don't see a mandate coming, but I think if there's another incident here that's catastrophic, I think you'll see some significant changes.
And it seems like this topic comes up every 3 or 4 years when something catastrophic happens, and then it kind of goes away until it happens again because it's not a common occurrence taking a skate to the neck.
No, and I think as players they've become a little bit more aware. I know there was something over maybe in the Swiss league here recent where somebody received a 5-game suspension for kicking with the skate blade. So I think people are more aware of it. I think you'll see more stringent, like more strict penalties for something that where you would use the blade in a way not intended. I think
Well, I
that
know you've got a mite, I've got a mite. How much time do you spend at mite practices telling kids not to lay on the ice? Or when we're having our Mite Blue League games and they're sitting on that pad waiting for their shift, don't lay on the ice. Sit up. You can't lay down, you're gonna get hurt.
well, and even to the point where like they think just banging their heels on the ice is fun because they can do it in their chairs or in their playrooms or whatever. But when you do it with the skate, it's got an effect on the ice itself. Well, for them just to think about what's actually on their feet. But yeah, you're right. You get up off the ice and try to avoid any contact with the skate blade that you can.
Well, the one thing I wanted to mention is that the neck guards, the neck protection has gotten a lot better recently. You will recall the old neck guards that they used to have, just a little plastic thing that went around, because mainly they're there to protect from sticks and pucks. You were more likely to get hit in the throat, like cross-checked in the throat, or get hit by a puck than you were to get a skate there. But those neck guards, they moved, they were uncomfortable. I mean, now they've got them built in. It's like wearing a turtleneck, just built right into your base layer, because everybody wears a base layer anyway. So now you've got a turtleneck on there, and it just seems more comfortable. There's not as much padding to protect you from the stick and the puck, but mean, there is some on some of them that I have seen.
Yeah, I think the ones I think back to were the big Cooper ones that were, about 2 inches in height, but maybe had about an inch and a half of thickness to it for that purpose alone. It was so if you got hit in the neck with a puck or a stick. But I think now you've seen TJ Oshie's company come out and become a little bit more relevant with his base layers. The turtleneck has always been relevant and used by players. I think Bauer and CCM both have their own versions of it. I don't know that those were intended for that neck protection, but I think that's become a byproduct of this situation as people are now aware of it. I know I've got more guys wearing that turtleneck type setup or undergarments that have that now than before, but I don't know. I didn't ask him if it was because of this situation, but certainly in youth, like I've noticed more kids wearing neck protection at the youth level than I've ever seen before. So it certainly has had an impact.
Well, I was also interviewed on that story, on that news story that was on. I went to we did it at the TC Everest Greenheck Fieldhouse rink, or Greenheck Turner Community Center is the new name. But there was a Pee Wee game going on, and I looked, and out of the two teams, I saw maybe five neck guards at the Pee Wee level. Um,
So that's
because they've never worn them before. It's hard to get players to add new equipment. It's easier to get them as their mites. This is just part of your hockey gear, period. You know,
and I think that's where you'll see the change happen like over time. But that 5 out of 30 players seems to be a pretty consistent percentage. But had you done it, pre this, you might have seen one or none. I mean, I think
probably none. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think there's been enough change that it's dictated, and the reality is it's probably warranted. I still think a mandate won't be coming unless something else happens. That's just my personal opinion.
I talked to the guys at Goal Line, and they said that basically all the manufacturers sold out
Yeah,
um,
makes sense.
shortly after the incident happened.
Well, I mean, it's going to happen in the top end for the players who make it to international tournaments because the IIHF is mandating it. They haven't set a date yet because all the manufacturers run out. And then juniors that have gone up to Canada have had to start wearing them because Hockey Canada requires. But we'll move on from net guards to this season. A lot of new coaches this year. Obviously, president of the Coaches Association, you're well aware of that. Is this just an aberration or a lot of retirements?
I mean, we've had some retirements. I think that's natural, but you're right. We've had some turnover as we've chased down some emails and gotten emails and tried to make sure that the high school coaches are informed of things through the WIA, things through you guys to make sure that they know how to kind of get up to speed with the process that we've all been using for these years. I'm not certain why that we've seen the turnover. But I think it's good, and it has positives and negatives to it. I think one of the things that we as a coaches group need to do better at is the education side of it. I mean, USA Hockey, like most of us are USA Hockey coaches and high school hockey coaches, and USA Hockey does a really good job of providing educational opportunities to grow and expand your hockey knowledge. We've partnered with the coaches site as a group to give our coaches access to that information and educational side of things to grow and expand their hockey knowledge through what those guys offer. So we've done a decent job there, but I still think, we don't have an onboarding system for new coaches because I think, a brand new coach is got plenty to worry about, especially if they're coming in with assistants who haven't been a part of it, between just the high school side of it, the school side, the academics, and then trying to get involved in the association. I think just for them to be a part of it is really, really good. I think it takes you a couple of years to get your feet wet and understand what your your system is like, what your routine is like between, busing and booster clubs and purchasing and ice time and schedules. Like all of those things get better over time. And I think as we've gone through, and I've gone through this whole process with the Coaches Association, you're finding more and more coaches as they get to between year 5 and 10, where they're ready to like jump in and do some things within the group.
Speaking of within the group, we were talking before recording that the senior class tournament obviously didn't have it last year, but a rough couple of years post COVID. And now Neil Matson, the head coach of Reedsburg, Wisconsin Dells, and has been for many years, is taking over the reins on the senior class tournament. What are your thoughts on the senior class tournament coming back and going forward?
I love it. I think, Waupun did such a great job for all those years. And we tried to get things going post COVID, and Neil seems to have a group there that's really interested in hosting this event. It's set up. The structure of it's going to be similar to what guys who've been around for 5 or 6 years. We'll go back to our Division I sections, and we'll have tryouts, and we'll have an 8-team tournament down in the Dells, March 15th through 17th. And I think it's our job as coaches to push it a little bit to these players, because it is such a great experience. As someone who got to experience it as a player, I've been able to experience it as a coach. It is a great way for high school seniors to get together, compete one last time, in the high school arena, and just enjoy competing with other people around your section. I mean, for our section here, it's going to be the old section that we had, the Wausau West from East Maryland, Point and Anago and Eagle River and Lakeland, and all of the, basically a combination of the Valley Conference and the GNC, but all these kids know each other. So I think it'd be really fun for those guys to get together and play in a tournament together. And Neil's done a great job of finding support and trying to build this event back to what it was, pre-COVID and before that. So pretty excited. And I hope all of our coaches and anyone listening to this that has a senior, encourage them to when the tryout dates and when those things come around, have them sign up, go to the tryouts, and just enjoy watching your high school senior compete with other high school seniors for one weekend.
BJ, one of the things that I thought was good about the senior class tournament is now it is more of a centrally located thing, being in Wisconsin Dells. And, getting a hotel room may not be so difficult there in March anymore. Waupun was, just kind of limited, and you just kind of had to there or try to get in Beaver Dam. But the Dells is set up a little bit more for a tournament. It's just my thought on it.
Well, they certainly know how to entertain and host in the Dells. I mean, there's plenty of rooms available, and I know Neil will make sure that they've got room blocks and those things to make things a little bit easier. But you're right. I mean, Waupun was just limited based on geography and the size of the town. But boy, did they do a great job for so many years hosting that tournament. And I hope Neil's group can really get this thing going, because it's a fun event for the kids.
One of my favorite comments from the senior class tournament came from many years back. Eric Bonnell was a player in Anago, and there was a kid from Stevens Point. I forget what his name is, but when the tournament, you said like these guys all know each other, So when the tournament was over, kind of puts his arm around, says, Bowen's good tournament. Now we can go back to hating each other, right?
It's the truth, though. I mean, I think about like Charlie DePoy, Bob McDonald, guys from Eagle River that we battled it out against. I mean, one of the funnest tournaments we had, Luke Hasbarg and playing against him and those guys. Like, that was such a fun tournament to be a part of, because, I mean, how kids connect are totally different. Like, we knew who each other were. We never really got to play, on teams against or with each other, like as teammates. Today it's totally different with the way spring and fall hockey works. These guys are around each other way more. With social media, they're connected way more than we were. We didn't have any of that stuff, which I'm totally thankful for. But I think it'd be great to get these guys for that reason alone. I mean, there's some certain rivalries that exist for guys to come out of it. And, I think there's probably a newfound respect for each other once you're done with it too.
All right. I guess we'll move on to the next topic for Coach Brandt. As the president of the WHCA, you spend a lot of time talking to the WIAA. Not a lot of rule changes for hockey this year from the NFHS, just some clarification around face-off locations and stuff. But has anything, a state tournament will be at Cap Ice again this year? That was at least a 2-year thing.
Yeah, I think, with the state, the rule stuff, like there's obviously a new emphasis on, they're always going to talk about checking for behind. They're going to talk about, hits to the head. Those are things that as coaches, we got to make sure that we're on them about the players, not the WIA. But the WIA has done a really nice job of including us. And I think that's a huge part of the hockey process because we're probably not different than any other sport, but we feel like we're a little bit different because not a lot of people in charge at the WIA have a ton of experience at the highest levels of our sport and how, like, the reality of our sport. NHL dictates what happens at every other level and beyond. And the LeVar's done a great job of including us in a lot of this process, which I appreciate. And I know our other coaches appreciate that we, are invested in this a little bit. For the state tournament, yeah, it was a 2-year contract with Cap Ice. I think last year, LeVar and company learned a ton about the venue and just when you go to a new venue, there's going to be things that are going to go wrong. There's going to be things that go well, but nobody ever really tells you what you do well from those events. So I think there was a lot of feedback given that you'll see some changes that hopefully make it a better experience. We haven't talked details about it, but my guess is there'll be some, maybe some bigger gaps between games to allow, exchange of the fans in and out, allow ice to set up to make sure ice conditions are good, locker rooms, all those things that have been there. I personally, and I probably told you guys, and I've tried to tell everyone I can, I absolutely love the environment that created. It was just fun to watch, and I think having some local teams there with Verona and Oregon certainly added to that to add to the high school experience. I really enjoyed having fans on the glass. Like that was fun for me to watch the high school kids interact and just enjoy it. So I think where it goes beyond that, I think that's yet to be determined. I think there's a lot of, there seems to be some momentum around the state for adding some new facilities. I met in Wausau here. We talked with the Parks Department about adding a new facility here, 2-sheet facility with one main game rink, and what that would look like. I know in the Dells, they're talking about adding a new facility that would house a certain number of spectators. That's probably close to what Cap Ice gives. There's talk in Eau Claire that there's going to be a new facility there. I feel like there's some good momentum, at least from a conversation perspective, about a different facility. But it'll be fun to talk with LeVar and just see how things went to see where we go from there, and obviously allow us some input in their decision.
Well, if you're taking suggestions, I would love to see warm-ups move to the second sheet at Cap Ice if that's a possibility. I think that would help the ice a lot to get, another 15 minutes of usage for every game off that ice, just to let it set up a little bit more. I don't know that the fans need to really watch warm-ups, so.
I like it.
And you'll remember back in the day when I believe it was when the Badgers were still at the Energy Center, the second sheet was used at least on the championship day for warm-ups, but before the championship games.
Yeah, I think, with Cap Ice, I know what they did on the other sheet over there is they placed some plywood and things over the top of the surface to give the players like basically an indoor warm-up area so that they had so it'll be interesting to see what LeVar says with some of that stuff and talking with Cap Ice and the Capitals and allowing us to be in there that weekend. So yeah, I think the greatest challenge they'll have is Wi-Fi. cellular service for their, the GoFan process, and then the waiting out outside. We were blessed with some really good weather, but I can imagine spring in Madison raining and fans not necessarily wanting to stand outside for 30, 40 minutes to wait for the next to finish up.
We've been to plenty of state tournaments over the years where it was either raining or snowing during, entry times.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how what changes are there. I think the fan experience will be the greatest changes you'll see, with this year's state tournament.
Well, at this time last year, I was really excited about, like you had mentioned, the prospects. There were two different prospects in Eau Claire, both of them being like a 4,000 seat arena. But I talked to Bob Bradovich over there, and nothing has happened on either of those in this last year. So
yeah,
I don't know where that is.
It's such a hard process. I know, like, we met with an architect here locally, and it's such a fun process to go through. You just hope that you can get, because I think ultimately you'd love to see a public-private partnership on some of this stuff, so the facility is used constantly. So it'll be interesting to see how all of these pan out, because the Dells one seems to have some momentum. I feel like our one in Wausau has some momentum here. So it'll be interesting to see, what takes shape here. I mean, we've still got probably 3 years of, having to make decisions on where the high school state tournament for boys and girls are hosted. And right now, it's Cap Ice.
Not that anybody else really cares, but as far as Wisconsin prep hockey was going, our situation last year, our setup there was like the best we've ever had. I mean, we were located right in the middle. We had access to everything. It was beautiful. I mean, yeah, if that arena had another 2,000 seats, it'd be great, and we could do. But our setup was, we couldn't have asked for anything more than what we had.
Now, on the other hand, we saw some of the struggles that fans were having. We did invite several fans up into our booth.
Yeah, I saw that. I mean, and I think that's what's going to have to happen right now, because there's talk too, when you talk to the Caps, like, there's talk of them getting an expansion approval there as well, where they would push out where the current video board is, and get some additional seating in that direction as well. So I mean, I think, as long as things keep pushing forward and there's positive changes, I mean, I see Cap Ice, because the big part is everyone wanted Madison still. I mean, I think that's a big part of the boys and girls state tournament is going to Madison. And we know that all of the things at Alliant that we've talked about in the past, like, I feel like Cap Ice did a really nice job of addressing some of those things, and then obviously some other things come up. So I'd love to see where we can be 3 years from now. I don't know that I'll still be president then, but I certainly want to be involved in that process, just based on what I've learned so far.
And then finally,
I did hear that there was, you were going to be primaried this next year.
Hey, I'm just looking for someone else to run against me, and I'll step away.
Well, then you got to do what Burglar does with housework, and it's weaponized incompetence.
Yeah, right. I don't want to go there, because I feel like I'm a little bit behind the 8 ball on some of the stuff already. I was a little delayed on some stuff. I want to go out doing things the right way.
So we've talked about everything except for your team. How's the Valley shaping up this year?
The Valley's, I think it's competitive at the top end. I think, there's a line in there right now where there'd be some mismatches. I mean, Rapids has been really competitive against Wausau West and Spash. Obviously, we played Spash last week, lost 5-2. Was a really good hockey game. The separator there was 3 power play goals we gave up in the second period, and getting scored on the very first shift of the game. I mean, those are momentum things that, our group is we're a lot of sophomores and juniors in the lineup. We've got some seniors that are in some key spots for us. So I think from the Wausau West perspective, we're getting better. And I think that part of it is when you're dealing with kids, even though they have varsity experience, I don't think that a sophomore is still a sophomore. You want to make sure that you can find ways to keep them successful and get some of our juniors and seniors to step up. So I think the Valley is I think like I said, there's definitely a line there. But the nice thing is teams are being super competitive. I think the coaches have done a good job of developing kids in their youth program, and it's always fun to get together and play those guys. And it's a group of coaches. We get along really well, which is nice too.
Anything else for Coach Brandt?
You're talking about the competitive level there at the Wisconsin Valley Conference, BJ, and I got to thinking, I've been involved in this stuff in high school hockey for 25 years now. And I remember back in the day when Big Eight conference was just the same. I mean, you had 5, 6 teams that were really good. It could beat anybody on any night. And, it's a lot of times it's not like that anymore. I don't think the talent base stays around as much. I mean, kids got options to go places and do stuff, but you still got the top teams, and those teams are always going to be competitive. Um, just kind of your thought on that.
Well, I think the Team Wisconsin model has helped our high school game. I mean, to keep our most of our top end talent in our state. I mean, I think we're always we're going to develop a bunch of kids that are going to be great college hockey players, and what that level is. I mean, if you look at our high school programs, we've developed a lot of through Team Wisconsin, and now some of these other avenues. We've developed a good amount of Division III, high-end Division III hockey players, and we're in the hotbed of Division III hockey right around us, and it's fun to be able to go to a rink and see Max Teckel at Stout and Kellen Theraldson at St. Mary's and Jacob Evans at Bethel. And through the years, we've had guys at, other, UW-Eau Claire, Cade Lemmer. I mean, we've got, just from our program alone, we've got 4 guys playing Division III hockey, and there's plenty of other programs like us. So I think the TW model has allowed us to keep that in there, but you're right. I mean, I think each conference has their own issues. I think there's some parity throughout the state this year a little bit, which has been fun to see. You'll see some different teams probably throughout the year within your top 6 and how things are voted on. So I think it'll be fun to watch that. But the TW model has allowed our guys to stay in state and compete for their local high schools, which has been really fun to watch.
Well, right now, the top 6s across the board are heavily weighted to Highway 29 and north.
Yeah, it'll be. I think you'll see. I think I would love to hear from you guys. Like when you have your top 6, how many coaches vote? And if it's a light number, how can we as a coaches association help you out?
Well, some weeks it's a light number, and other weeks it's a big number. If I was to send out a reminder every week, the amount of coaches that vote every week would probably double. But on the other hand, I also don't think I should have to, if that makes sense. Maybe one at the start of the season is not enough. But so like last week, we had really, really good participation. This week is probably about half of what it was last week. It didn't affect the rankings that much. The same teams are pretty much there. The order changes a bit, but
what I think as coaches, we do our homework too. I mean, I think, regardless, I'm a Division I team, but we're looking at all the scores all the time, because, you never know if you're going to get to the state tournament. And as a coach, you get a vote in Division I and Division II. So like, it's really important that as coaches, we continue to do our homework and educate ourselves about kids throughout the state, because that goes into all state. Well, it starts with all conference voting, know the best players in your conference. And then as you travel outside of your conference, you get to know the players throughout the state, so that when we honor all state kids, you've seen a bunch of them play.
And I will say, when it comes to like the top 6 voting, since you asked specifically, the coaches that most the coaches that vote most consistently are generally coaches that or teams that appear in or around the top six. They're not necessarily all top 60. In fact, they're not all top six teams, but they will have been some point in the last 5, 6 years, or they're like 12th, which is the difference between 12th and 6th. I mean, when you look at a 12 can beat a 6 easy. So but the teams at the bottom that are struggling are generally the ones that aren't voting because, and I can see why they probably don't see much in it for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think we run into that throughout, any group that you're involved with a little bit. But I can tell you, I personally appreciated the reminder.
What I like about well, not necessarily the top six. I'm really a fan of the two divisions. I think that the two divisions has helped some of the smaller schools in terms of getting their community more excited about hockey. I mean, you look at some of like Amory and New Richmond and Somerset and River Falls and those. I mean, those teams are. I mean, they're competing and beating Division One teams, and I mean, we're talking a small town like Amory where they've got 30 kids on their roster. They got a full varsity and a JV, and they're able to. And I think they're able to compete and keep kids interested because I mean, there's now a state tournament for them. I mean, Amory really had no route to the state tournament before. Or the town I would think is like Hayward. Hayward, they had no route to the state tournament. I mean, they were either Superior or Eau Claire. I mean, they weren't going to go. And now they have a chance, and that helps them build interest in their program, and all the way up.
I agree. I think the two division model has helped. I think it's certainly helped the bottom 32 enrollment group, so the Division two teams. I think it's helped them a ton. I think on the Division one side, I think where you get the most complaints is the equity in the ability to get to the state tournament. So I think as a coaches group, we're always looking for ways to improve that. In the past, we've been presented with a 4-4-4 model. So you get 12 teams to the state tournament, you get 3 divisions. I think if everyone had a crystal ball, we'd love to see an 8 and a 4. And I think that is there is an ability to do that, but I think we have to work with the WIA and the girls side of things because I think that's where the greatest limiter is. The WIA loves having the boys and the girls in the same weekend. You look at other places, they don't do the boys and girls state tournament on the same weekend, and that's something that's we could certainly discuss and look at. But I know from the boys side, we'd love to get to an 8 and a 4.
I think everybody would want an 8 and 4.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anybody that would disagree with it. It's just making sure that the things that the WIA need for those state tournaments exist before they'll say yes to it.
Yeah, I mean, like the current 4-and-4 model, the 4 divisions in Division One are actually bigger in terms of raw number of teams than the 8 teams were back when it was just 8-0. That's not great for the teams that are Division One. And I think the problem with splitting up the boys and girls is that if the WIAA and the girls coaches want the girls championship game to be televised right now, I think it has to be with the boys, because I forget the name of the company that owns WKOW, WAOW, something media. I don't think that they would broadcast the girls state championship game without the boys sandwiching it on either side. A couple of years ago, I asked the WIA just offhand what the winter sports participation numbers across the various different sports, and obviously basketball is way up at the top of the list, and then there's like wrestling and boys hockey, and I think swimming and diving were like right around the same number, and girls hockey was much smaller and it's a tough sell if they want that game to be televised on actual TV, not just streaming, to split it up to its own weekend.
Yeah, and that's been the biggest part where we as a boys group would never want to take that opportunity away from the girls. And if splitting our tournaments does that, we wouldn't want to do that at all because, I think all of us understand the importance of having that state championship on the statewide network. I think it's the exposure for the girls game is huge. Selfishly, I've got 3 daughters. I want them to have the same opportunities that the boys have in terms of exposure for that. And one of the things we mentioned and just talked off the cuff a little bit about was, is having it on the statewide network what we need? I think about how I view services and everything. Everything's right here, right? You can watch it on your iPad, you can watch it on your phone. Is that a change that we make to allow us some more freedom in how we schedule it and how things are done? Obviously that's a partnership of and tons of planning that would have to go into it, but it's just things that we throw at the board and see if there's any stickiness to it, to see if we can get any momentum with it. I think just the way people view things now is totally different than they did 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Even now that statewide network, I think, is down to 4 TV stations, is it not? I mean, it used to be like 6 or 8.
Yeah, I think I don't know the details on it, but I do know like when Hudson was in the state finals, they wouldn't get the statewide network in Hudson. They would get the Minnesota version of their state. And so it's interesting how that just the details of it are totally.
Yeah. Broadcast TV is not what it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Well, don't be saying that too loud. Brad Hansen, the news director at WAOW's daughter, is on my team.
Well, I mean, there's still a lot of people to watch it. I think it's really fun to watch how people's usage of things changes over the years and how we try to navigate through what we knew as people growing up versus what actually will get watched by the next generation. I mean, when a commercial comes on the radio, my kid's like, Dad, go to a new station. And it's like, because they're so used to skip ad or like the ability to live life a la carte, as I say.
Like I canceled satellite radio in my car. I basically forgot that terrestrial radio even existed. By the time that I canceled it, I'm like, what radio station? Nobody listens to those anymore.
Yeah, just different how people view things. It's so I hope we can start to meander some of those things and look through that process as the next phase of coaches comes into our group and gives us some ideas on how ways to make our sport better.
Do you as high school coaches get any like insight? Like last year Spooner left the Northwest Iceman and was just Spooner again. Is that just something that kind of happens for most of the coaches around the state? Like, hey, look, we got an extra team, or do you kind of see those things coming?
No, I mean, as a board, we don't necessarily see those things coming. We hear about them kind of after the fact, which is great because when you listen to coaches talk, like John Maurerman did, years ago. This was, I think, 2 years ago when we honored him. That's all he talked about was if you want to grow this game, you have to grow your youth programs, and it starts with that, and that's how you expand this number. And I think coaches that are going to be in this for a long time truly that want to invest in it in their community and in a small community like Spooner, like that's where it starts. You got to start with your kindergartners and just know that you're going to have to do some work and we live in an instant gratification world. So that's not an instant gratification thing. You get 10 kindergartners that play hockey in a small community and you follow that up with 10 the next year and 10 the next year. Well, now you've got some momentum and you can see that as they go on. So I think as an association, we don't hear about it much until it's done. But it's fun to see when clubs split up and new teams come on board, because I still live in the old times a little bit where, the Pete Susans of the world would say, we got to get to 96. Once we get to 96 teams, then 8-4 is a true option. So the sooner we can get to that number, I think we've got some momentum.
Yeah, I mean, like I can see it in Everest youth hockey. Um, I think the numbers really jumped back in 2018 when Everest made state. Um, Everest has 30 peewees this year, uh, probably 35, 36 squirts, and 70 something 8U mites, not including the learn to skate groups. But our bantams are still a co-op. And Everest has fielded a varsity team for however many years now. And even then, our bantams are a co-op. But we have huge numbers at the lower levels. And, you get that one group come through and all of a sudden everybody else just kind of follows behind them.
Yep. Yeah, it's crazy how that momentum happens. Just one little event happens, and I think all of us are going to see the post, the post COVID group. So you're probably talking the 4 and 5 year olds that were that age 20 in 2020, 2021, 2022. But then you also see the post COVID jump where people are like, "Yep, let's get back into things." And it's been fun to watch. I hope that it continues to grow, because it will certainly pay off down the road for high school hockey.
BJ, I've always thought that a high school team's fortunes can change with one really good class that comes through. You get a class of kids that are respected and liked, and all of a sudden it can have a trickle down effect. All of a sudden, these little kids who look up to these kids say, "Hey, you know what? I want to play hockey like BJ Brandt did." And
That was always a question, something that people from Anago, players from Anago, never realized until they got to be adults. Our whole youth career, Wausau would beat the crap out of us. And then in high school, it would be competitive. And it's not because all of a sudden Anago got better. It's because in high school, well, you need 3 good seniors, you need 3 good juniors, a couple good sophomores, and maybe a freshman or two. There's only so much ice out there, and you got 4 grades to fill it with. So once you get to high school, I mean, yes, the skill level is higher, but the gap, I think, between teams can shrink, just because you have a good class or two come through.
And that's, I think, as someone who's in the high school all the time, that whole concept of having a good class. I mean, having one really strong class changes a building. It's really fun when you get a good group that's respectful and respected and hardworking and leaders. Like, it's crazy how awesome a building changes. It's crazy how it affects the groups behind them, because that's what they got to see for 2-3 years in leadership roles. So I think just that same thing, MJ. You get one good class, and it can change a program for sure.
Well, I think we've taken up enough of Coach Brandt's time. He's only been on here for an hour. So we'll let him go and move on with the rest of our business.
it's his bedtime.
Well, I enjoy being here, as I've told you, because of the chaos that just seems to follow me at home between the kids and the dogs. But I always appreciate our time, guys, and I look forward to seeing you at the rink. I'll see you there tomorrow, and I'm sure at other rinks in the future. So thanks for what you guys do for our high school hockey group.
Thanks for sharing
Thanks,
time with
BJ.
us.
Thanks, guys.
All right, BJ Brandt, our Wisconsin Hockey Coaches Association president, correct?
Correct.
All
Until someone
right.
runs against him.
We gotta start a scandal about him.
He's been president for quite a while.
He
He must be doing
I,
a good.
I love having him on because you can always you get good thoughts out of him, and you can always run a little bit long on time like we always do when it comes to talking to him because you know his insight is so much heavier than a lot of people's are, I guess you could say.
I think Pete Susans trained him well.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. He taught him the little things. All right, well, let's get started with the rest of the show, fellas. Our games of the week. Burglar, you got to see Hudson and Wisconsin Valley Union, and I got to see Middleton and Edgewood. And I'm going to tell you about Middleton and Edgewood first. This is a game where Middleton comes in number one in the state, and I mean Edgewood comes in number one in the state. Excuse me. And it was just kind of one of those games where you can tell it's an early season game. I mean, guys are, the hands aren't quite there, and some of the positioning isn't quite there, and it just and a lot of it comes with repetition. Well, I saw a lot of that in this game. On both sides. But in the first period, Madison Edgewood got a power play goal from Ben Block, and Colby Thompson and Owen Barnett were assist on that goal to make it 1-0. And you guys, this carried on all the way into the third period. Second period, you know, Middleton had a 5-on-3 power play for over a minute and couldn't score. And then in the third period, it was an empty netter from Madison Edgewood that sealed the game by Matt Richter. But guys, you can see how things changed last year. Middleton had Brady Engelkis, and Brady Engelkis now playing here in Janesville for the Jets, and he's one of the best forwards in the state. And I'll tell you, watching him, Middleton really misses that type of player in their lineup. But um, they played hard. Middleton did have some chances, and they made a big push at the end of the game. But um, Edgewood goes out and gets a 2-0 win, and they get to retain that number one spot. I would bet.
We'll see.
That's right. Somewhere along the way in this show, you will find out. Let's see what we got here. Burglar, you got to see Hudson, Lady Raiders taking on the Wisconsin Valley Union.
I did. Brett and I went down there, and while we couldn't pass up a chance to see Hudson. It's a 3-hour drive to see Hudson on their home rink, so they were coming close enough that we went down there to catch the game, and it was a long bus ride for them as well. I think maybe little bus legs had something to do with it, but they got off to a slow start. It was a scoreless first period, but Wisconsin Valley Union outshot Hudson 15-4 in that first period. But then Hudson rallied, got their legs back. The shots ended up even on the game, so they did turn things around. The Union scored first. They had a 3-on-2, and Jenna Jones. She's I think the lead playmaker on that team. She's a captain, and she got the puck in the left circle, kind of turned to the side and positioned herself for a nice hard shot, but instead she threw a hard pass to Lily Cheeky, who was parked at the back door, and she put it in to give the Wisconsin Valley Union a 1-0 lead. Raiders did score late in the period, got the puck to the net, and freshman goaltender Izzy Wojcik. She made a couple of saves, but she couldn't corral the puck, and eventually it got poked underneath her and into the back of the net. Wojcik she's a freshman. She's pretty quick, but the one thing I have to say is she doesn't really fill the net, if you know what I mean. And when she drops down into the butterfly, there's like gaps all around because she's not very big. But she did a nice job. That one she just couldn't corral the puck, and they got it in. Otherwise, both teams have been playing good defense. They had really limited opportunities in front of the net. Um, but that one they did get the puck in and eventually got it past her. And then the winning goal came in the third period with what 3.5 minutes to play. Brooklyn Monacan, she tried for a wraparound, but Wojcik stopped her. Monacan got the puck back and looked up and saw Cahoon. That was Juliana Cahoon. She scored the first goal, and she was alone in the slot, and Monacan passed the puck to her, and she buried it. That was the photo on the front cover on the site. Um, but it was a good game, very evenly matched. Um, Jenna, what did I say her name? Jenna Jones. Like I said, she was a playmaker on that team, and they got a freshman defenseman on the Wisconsin Valley Union, number 17, Campbell Spies. Yeah, you're gonna hear her name in the next few years. She doesn't mind taking the puck end to end, and she's got real good skills. Just a freshman now, but she's going to do well. On the Hudson side, I think their two best players were their defensive pillars on number 10 and 14, Cameron Robson and Avery Martin. Um, they did a nice job keeping the net clean in front of goaltender Sophie Thompson. I'm not sure where Katerina, what's her name?
Cat Donna.
Yeah, she wasn't there. They only had the one goaltender suited up. I probably should have asked the coach, but I was fairly lazy and didn't do that. But she wasn't playing. But Sophie Thompson played, stopped 25 and 26 shots, so she did her job. So they should be in good shape. It was a very good game. It was fun to watch. And of course, the two dogs riding the Zamboni.
Um, let's move on to our best Western Premier Hotel players of the week. Burglar, you get to talk about that. And speaking of goalies,
I'll take them.
I what's that?
I just left Burglar on the notes from last week. I'll do the players of the week.
Okay. Speaking of goalies, the forwards and defensemen in this state had a hard time scoring against these two.
Yes, they did. Our boys' best Western Premier Park Hotel player of the week is Rowan White, Mr. Bean, goalie from Madison Edgewood. Mr. Bean is Rowan Atkinson. Tuesday, he stopped all 21 shots in a 2-0 win over Middleton, including a 5-on-3 power play. On Thursday, he stopped all 17 shots in a 2-0 win over McFarland. So he stopped 38 of 38 on the week. Good for a 100% save percentage. Ignore my notes there. And the girls' best Western Premier Park Hotel player of the week is Jillian Traver of the Rock County Fury. On Tuesday, she stopped 33 of 34 in a 2-1 win over Cap City. On Thursday, she stopped 22 of 23 in a 5-1 win over Beaver Dam. And on Saturday, she stopped 45 of 47 in a 3-2 win over the Lakeshore Lightning. So that's good for 100 of 104 for a 961 save percentage on the week. So a couple of tough goalie performances this week for our players of the week.
If I remember correctly, Rowan White also played, Edgewood played on Saturday. I want to say they played, who was it? Baraboo Portage, I believe it was. But I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know if he played net, but I know that Edgewood beat him like 6-0. So if he played in that, that'd be three straight shutouts. You know, that'd be Tommy Mose, like,
Lawson Kinsman played in that one.
Okay, well, he had the night off then. But nonetheless, Rowan White of Edgewood and Jillian Traver of Rock County are best Western Premier players of the week. And guys, I'll tell you what, these goalies, these forwards are maybe a little bit of early season, not quite there yet, but obviously we see some of these goalies are come out of the chute pretty good so far this year.
Well, I mean,
One thing I have to add, anybody from Edgewood or the Rowan White family, Uh, Send us a picture. The roster for Madison Edgewood does not have a picture for Rowan White, so on our front cover where it has the picture of the player of the week, it's just going to be a gray silhouette until somebody sends us a picture.
Okay. Top sixes. Who would like to cover top sixes?
Quiz me.
I know I see this is your wheelhouse right here.
Yes. Starting with Division Two, very little movement this week. Amory, New Richmond, Oregon are still 1, 2, 3. Lakeland is still 4. River Falls jumps up into the 5th spot. They were not in the list last week. And McFarland is 6th. Also receiving votes this week were St. Mary Springs and Somerset. For the girls, Superior is still number 1. St. Croix Valley Fusion and Central Wisconsin swapped spots. The Storm are 3rd this week. The Fusion are 2nd. Hudson is still 4th. Bay Area is still 5th. And the Chippewa Falls Menominee Sabres took over the 6th spot. They were not in the list last week. Also receiving votes were Hayward University School and the Warbirds. And then in Division 1, Edgewood is still number 1. Brookfield moved up to number 2. Bayport dropped down to number 3. Spash is still 4th. Chippewa Falls is still 5th. Hudson moved into the 6th spot. They were not ranked last week. And also receiving votes for Division 1 are Eau Claire Memorial, Notre Dame Academy, and Superior. So of those 18 teams, 13 of them are on or north of Highway 29. Spash is awfully close.
Are we drawing a line in the sand when it comes to teams this year?
I don't know what it's not always like that. There's lots of times we have a large southern contingent of top 6 teams across the board. Right now, it's really just D1.
Well, I think that some of the teams that are usually in this top 6, at the end of this levels, maybe some of these teams haven't quite shown up yet, but we all know how this can change in a hurry. So
I'm sure Verona will make their appearance known, and Middleton, I mean, number 1 team in the state, and it was a 2-1 game with or 2-0 game with an empty netter. I'm sure Middleton will be appearing at some point in the future, at least maybe not in the top 6, but they'll at least get some votes.
okay,
It was weird last week when I added them all up, and there was just a northern team after northern team after northern team.
okay. All right, our upcoming games of the week. What do we got here,
Yeah,
guys?
I'm gonna get to see three of our teams from the various top sixes. Chippewa Falls and Wausau West tomorrow night. Chippewa Falls, they're in there. They're number 5 in Division 1, and then on the girls' side on Thursday, Central Wisconsin and Bay Area are both top 6 teams. So
And that's a pair of perennial top 6 teams. Bay Area and Central Wisconsin. Seems like those two girls teams always jockeying for position there on the girls' top 6.
And there was a couple down years there for Bay Area. The years that the Fox City Stars were really, really good and won back-to-back titles. But they jumped right back into it.
Okay, we will have more on those games on the site, so everybody make sure you check that out because Burglar is a very interesting photographer. He takes pictures of some pretty cool things.
Well, and you'll have to read it on the site because we won't have a podcast next week, what with Christmas and all.
Oh, that's right. That's right. All right, guys, we got our final thoughts, things we want to get off our chest, something that's in your mind. Junior, you got anything?
I don't know. After talking to Coach Brandt for an hour, I don't know that I have anything left in my head.
Okay. Bill Senior?
no, I'm good.
Well, just so happens I do. Um, this past weekend here in town here, as everybody knows, I work with the Janesville Jets doing their webcast, and from time to time you see guys come through who played some Wisconsin hockey, as players, and now all of a sudden I'm starting to see some come through as coaches. A couple of years ago, I saw Charlie Grasscamp come through, but one of my favorite kids who played Wisconsin hockey here was Griff Jeska out of the Milwaukee area. He played for Milwaukee Marquette, and he was an assistant coach for Kenai River. And it's like two old friends seeing each other. We hadn't seen each other years, and I saw during summer he got the job as assistant coach, and he comes in and he dresses the part, no doubt about it. He looks pretty sharp in those suits, but it's good to see a kid who played high school, played college, who went on and played at the pro levels, and now he said at age 28, it was just time. He knew his body, and it was just time to get out of it and move on. And he decided to get into coaching. So it was good to see him. It's good to see the fellow guys who come through um, early on in high school, and you get to watch them, see them give back to the game. And Griff Jeska was one of those kids that I always liked to see, and uh, he was respected amongst his peers as players, and I know the TW coaching staff liked him, so it was good to see Griff Jeska. Guys, he's offered to come on. I offered him to come on. Okay, um, come on our podcast, and he's coaching up there in Alaska, and he may have some interesting things to say about salmon fishing and stuff, but also find out what's a hockey coach is like being an assistant coach for a junior team. So I just thought that was kind of interesting to see somebody that you hadn't seen in a while who had success at the level here in Wisconsin and taking it to new levels. And there's no argument out of you guys about it. Okay.
Nope, it's I love seeing uh well, especially I mean players that I coached before, players that I worked with before. It makes you feel old a little bit sometimes when they're coming back and they've got kids and they're coaching and stuff. But still, it's good to see them staying involved in the game and thinking that maybe you had a little part to play in that of their development or whatever over the years.
Yeah, I believe Jessica was a Player of the Year finalist his senior year. I believe he lost out to Senator Thomas Aiken from
The senator.
that's what they called him from Whitefish Bay, Nicolay Shorewood, um, who
That
played
was
at
Mako's guy.
who played at Harvard. Also, went and played in college. But yeah, Jessica, I believe they were runners up his junior year with the famous Joe Lorado, uh, captaining that team Jessica's junior year, and then he was a Player of the Year finalist his senior year.
And then there comes the Joe Lorado. You don't leave him alone in the slot because every single time he's going to kill
Easiest
you from there.
defensive call you have to make. Is he on the ice? Yes. Don't let him go there.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I think that's about all we got for this week. I'm sure we'll have more in 2 weeks since next week is Christmas Day and we're all going to be opening presents and eating food and all that fun stuff. So,
Wow.
guys,
2 weeks.
Well, Bill's going to be in South Dakota, so
okay.
I don't even think they have AOL in South Dakota. I think he's going to have to log in through CompuServe.
To take up drinking.
Well, guys, it's kind of I want to say it's kind of getting near the halfway point of the season already. So, you guys have a wonderful holiday, and everybody else out there, hope you have a wonderful holiday as well. And we'll be out there covering some games, and we'll
Oh
keep
yeah,
you
we'll
updated.
be at well, at least Dell and I will be at some holiday tournaments. I know Dell's gonna make it to the final day of our tournament in Eau Claire. Um, I usually go over for that one, but Dell's gonna do it this year. And I think I'm gonna try to catch four-team tournament. There'll be two games in Antigo, and then head over to Green Bay to catch one day of their showdown in Titletown, and then hopefully in Appleton for the final round of the tournament they have at that Community First Center there. I forget what that one's called, but it's on our site.
I think Dell was saying something about Culver's Cup.
Yes, he's doing yeah, the final day of our tournament, the girls Culver's Cup down there.
Okay. All right. You guys ready to put a bow on it and go?
Yes, sir.
All righty. For the Berg clan up there and Dell Scanlon, who's got the week off. I'm Mike Hammett. Happy holidays from This Week in Wisconsin Prep Hockey.